London in 1666 was a medieval city that had never been redesigned. Over 300,000 people crammed into alleyways so narrow that neighbors on opposite sides could reach out and shake hands from their windows. The buildings were timber frames packed with tar, the roofs were thatched, and the summer of 1666 had been the driest in living memory. But here's what makes it even worse. Just 1 year earlier, the Great Plague had swept through London and killed nearly 100,000 people. 1 in 4 Londoners dead. The city was already broken, already grieving, and now, after all of that, the summer heat had turned the timber buildings into tinder. The whole city was a powder keg. All it needed was a spark.
It was 2 in the morning on September 2nd, 1666. Thomas Farriner, the king's own baker, had left his oven burning on a street called Pudding Lane. A spark caught the hay, then the walls, then the roof. His family woke up choking on smoke and escaped across the rooftops. But one maid, too afraid to jump, stayed behind. She burned to death. She was the first to die, from a bakery on a lane named after pudding. Within the hour, the fire had reached the inn next door, then the warehouse across the street. There was no fire brigade, no organized response, just people throwing buckets of water from wells already running dry. The fire didn't care. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, was woken up in the middle of the night. His advisors were panicking. They needed his authority to demolish houses and create fire breaks to stop the fire before it spread. But that required his direct order. He came, he looked, he surveyed the flames already eating through half of Pudding Lane, and then he said, and I quote, "Pish, a woman might piss it out," and he went back to bed. That one decision would cost London 13,000 homes. By dawn on September 2nd, the fire had already consumed 300 houses. The east wind, dry, relentless, pushed the flames west along the riverfront at terrifying speed. Streets that were 4 meters wide meant nothing. The heat threw burning debris across entire blocks, starting new fires ahead of the main front. By midday, the fish market at Billingsgate was gone. By 3 in the afternoon, the fire had reached the docks on the Thames, packed with oil barrels, coal stores, and warehouses full of brandy and tallow. They didn't just burn, they exploded. Samuel Pepys, a government official who lived nearby, wrote in his diary that it was the most horrid, malicious, bloody flame he had ever seen. By nightfall, just 18 hours after that first spark in the bakery, the fire stretched half a mile wide, and it was accelerating. While the fire raged, the people of London did what people always do in catastrophe. They grabbed what they could and ran. Carts piled high with furniture jammed the streets. Families dragged their belongings toward the river. Some buried valuables in their gardens before fleeing. The fields outside the city walls filled overnight with tens of thousands of people sleeping under carts, under trees, under nothing at all. The king ordered emergency food distribution. Bread was brought in from surrounding villages. But some people refused to leave. There are accounts of men and women sitting in their burned-out homes, surrounded by ash, refusing to go. One man was reportedly found sitting in the ruins of his house, playing a fiddle. Whether that's true or not, it captures something real about what it feels like to lose everything you've ever known. King Charles II didn't wait any longer. He rode into the streets himself, in person, in the middle of the fire, passing buckets of water alongside ordinary citizens, pressing gold coins into the hands of men willing to demolish buildings. His brother, the Duke of York,
took command of the fire brigades.
Even before the fire was out, Londoners were looking for someone to blame, and in 1666, the answer was obvious: the Catholics, or the French, or the Dutch. England was at war with the Dutch at the time. Rumors spread faster than the fire itself. A woman was nearly lynched for allegedly carrying fire bombs in her apron. She was carrying chickens. Then came Robert Hubert, a French watchmaker who walked into a London police station and confessed in extraordinary detail to deliberately starting the Great Fire. There was just one problem. Robert Hubert had arrived in London 2 days after the fire started. He could not physically have done it. His own ship's captain testified to this. The court knew it. The jury knew it. They hanged him anyway, because London needed someone to blame, and a French Catholic was close enough. The official inquiry confirmed the fire was an accident, but someone still added a plaque to the monument blaming Catholic arsonists. That inscription wasn't removed until 1831.
By September 5th, the fire was out. 4 days. And the numbers were staggering. 13,200 houses, 87 churches, St. Paul's Cathedral, the most iconic building in England, completely gutted. 100,000 people homeless. And the confirmed death toll? 6. 6 people. For a fire that destroyed 80% of a city of 300,000 people, 6 official deaths. Historians still argue about that number. Some believe the real toll was far higher, that the bodies of the poor simply weren't recorded. The rich had names, the poor had graves no one marked. Let's talk about what this actually cost. In 1666, the total damage from the Great Fire of London was estimated at £10 million. That's roughly £2 billion in today's money. For context, the entire annual revenue of the English crown at the time was less than £2 million a year. The fire cost 5 years of the king's entire income in 4 days. The rebuilding took decades, and it was paid for in ways that shaped modern finance. A coal tax was introduced. Every ton of coal entering London was taxed for the next 10 years, and that money went directly into rebuilding the city's churches and infrastructure. 52 new churches, funded by people burning coal to stay warm. But the most lasting financial invention came from the chaos of the claims. Thousands of Londoners had lost everything: their homes, their businesses, their livelihoods, and there was no way to prove what anything had been worth before it burned. No records, no valuations, nothing. That problem, how do you protect yourself from a loss you can't predict, created the first fire insurance offices in history. Within 2 years of the fire, Nicholas Barbon opened the first one on the corner of a rebuilt London street. For a small annual fee, your home was covered. If it burned, you were paid. Within weeks of the fire, King Charles II commissioned a young architect named Christopher Wren, 33 years old, barely known outside academic circles, to rebuild London from scratch. Wren would go on to design 52 churches and a new St. Paul's Cathedral, whose dome still dominates the London skyline today. But the rebuilding created things that had never existed before. New building codes required stone and brick, no more timber. Streets were widened, and because so many buildings had been destroyed with no way to prove their value, for the first time in history, fire insurance companies were created. The Great Fire of London literally invented the concept of insuring your home. The London you know today, its streets, its skyline, its stone buildings, is the city that rose from those ashes. The fire didn't destroy London, it rebuilt it into something that could actually last. And as for Thomas Fariner, the baker who started all of this, he was never charged. He lived another 20 years, rebuilt his bakery, and died peacefully in his bed in 1688. Some people have all the luck. If you made it this far, thank you, genuinely. This is Rebuilt in Time.